The sun was slowly rising over the quiet valley of Bethany Hollow, casting golden light across the thatched roofs and winding dirt paths. The air smelled of dew and wildflowers, and in the middle of the little village stood a humble white chapel. Its bell tower leaned slightly, its walls were cracked, and its paint had long faded, yet to the people of Bethany Hollow, it was the beating heart of their home. Inside that chapel lived Elias, a middle-aged carpenter who also served as its preacher. He had a face lined with years of quiet labor and eyes that carried both sorrow and peace. He wasn't known for great sermons or fiery speeches, but for something much rarer and unshakable kindness. Elias lived alone in a small wooden cottage behind the chapel. His wife had passed away years ago, and they had no children. Many nights he sat by the dim glow of a candle, reading from a worn Bible that had belonged to her. Life had given him loss, but faith had given him purpose. He often prayed, "Lord, let my hands never tire of doing good. Let them stay gentle even when the world grows harsh." Those hands, rough from wood and work, were hands that built, mended, and healed not through miracles, but through simple acts of love. One stormy evening, as the wind howled through the hills, Elias was locking the chapel door when he saw a figure stumbling down the muddy road. The man was drenched, clutching something tightly in his arms. Without a thought, Elias ran to him. "Come inside, stranger, before the cold takes you," he said. The man's voice trembled. "Please, my wife, she's sick." Elias guided him into the chapel, and only then did he see that the bundle in the man's arms was a frail young woman, unconscious and pale as snow. Without hesitation, he spread blankets near the altar and lit a fire. He made a bed of straw and fetched water. The man said his name was Thomas, and the woman was Lydia. They had lost their home in a fire and had been wandering for days. Elias shared his bread and soup, then sat by them through the night. When Lydia finally woke the next morning, she whispered weakly, "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." Elias smiled gently and replied, "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. And because Christ helped us all when we had nothing to offer him." Tears filled her eyes, and that day, something changed in that small chapel. Warmth returned to its cold stone walls. Days passed, and Thomas and Lydia regained their strength. They began helping Elias with the chapel's upkeep. Thomas repaired the leaky roof, Lydia arranged flowers by the altar. Slowly, laughter and hymns began to echo again through the building. The villagers noticed the change. People who hadn't come to pray in months began returning, drawn by the peace and love they felt within those walls. Elias would tell them, "Kindness is not weakness, it is the strength of Christ living through us." But not everyone understood. Some of the villagers whispered that Elias was foolish. "He feeds strangers while we can barely feed ourselves," they said. "He'll bring trouble to our doors." Yet Elias paid no attention to gossip. He believed kindness was a seed. It might take time, but one day it would bloom. One morning, a little boy appeared at the chapel steps. He was barefoot, dirty, and trembling from hunger. "Please, sir," he said shyly, "could I have some bread?" Elias knelt, gave him a piece, and asked his name. "Aaron," the boy replied. His father had left him, and his mother had died. Elias took him in without hesitation. "You'll stay with me," he said. "This house is big enough for all who need it." Before long, the chapel became more than a place of worship. It became a home for the broken. People who had nowhere else to go found refuge there. Elias taught them to work, to pray, and to believe that goodness still mattered. One afternoon, the village mayor, Mr. Garrison, came to see him. The mayor was a proud, practical man who cared more for order than mercy. "Elias," he said sharply, "you've turned this chapel into a shelter. You're encouraging laziness. These people should learn to fend for themselves." Elias looked at him calmly. "They will, in time," he said. "But first, they must heal. A man with an empty heart cannot stand on his feet." The mayor scoffed. "You're wasting your effort. Kindness doesn't fill stomachs." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but it fills souls, and that's where hunger truly begins." Angry, the mayor forbade anyone from donating food or money to the chapel. Soon, Elias's pantry was empty, and his firewood was gone. Still, he refused to turn anyone away. At night he prayed, "Lord, give us this day our daily bread, not just the kind we eat, but the kind that keeps faith alive." The next morning, Elias took his woodworking tools and went door to door offering to build furniture for food. Every loaf or coin he earned, he shared with the poor. His quiet courage touched hearts. Even those who had once mocked him began to feel ashamed. The seed of kindness he had planted began to grow again. Then came the winter storm. The snow fell heavy and fast. By nightfall, the roof of the chapel groaned under the weight. Elias and the others tried to clear it, but before they could, part of it collapsed. They rushed everyone to safety, but the chapel was in ruins. Elias sat in the snow, coughing from the cold, staring at the shattered beams. "We've lost it," Thomas said sadly. Elias shook his head. "No, Thomas. The walls have fallen, but not the spirit that built them." When dawn came, the villagers gathered to see the damage and gasped. Amid the wreckage stood the large wooden cross, untouched. The sunlight fell directly upon it, making it glow as if it were alive. Silence filled the air. Even Mayor Garrison removed his hat, humbled by the sight. "How did it survive?" he whispered. Elias smiled softly. "Because love endures all things." That moment changed everything. The villagers, moved by what they saw, decided to rebuild the chapel together. Farmers brought wood, children carried stones, and the mayor donated his own savings for the roof. Everyone worked side by side, singing hymns as they built. When the new chapel was finished, its bell rang louder than ever before, echoing across the valley. Years passed, and Bethany Hollow prospered. Thomas and Lydia had a child, Aaron grew into a strong young man, and Elias became older, slower, but never weary of kindness. Yet life, as it always does, brought another test. A terrible drought struck the region. The river dried up, crops failed, and hunger spread. Fear crept into people's hearts. Old kindness began to fade as everyone fought to survive. One night, the villagers gathered in the square, shouting and blaming one another. "We can't feed everyone," one man yelled. "If we keep sharing, none of us will survive." Elias stepped forward, his face pale but his eyes firm. "My friends," he said, "kindness is not only for easy days. It's for days like this, when it costs something. If we close our hearts now, we'll lose more than food, we'll lose our faith." A woman cried, "But what do we have left?" Elias slowly walked to his cottage, returned carrying a small loaf of bread, and lifted it high. "Then we will start with this," he said softly. "Christ fed thousands with little. Let us trust his love, not our fear." Moved by his courage, people began to bring what they had: a handful of grain, a jar of water, a little fruit. They pooled everything together and shared it equally. That night, no one went hungry. They didn't have much, but they had enough. And before dawn, clouds rolled in from the west. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then stronger, washing away dust and despair. The villagers wept with relief. To them, it was more than weather. It was a miracle born from faith. Years turned into decades. Elias grew frail, his beard white, his back bent. One evening, he called Aaron to his bedside. "You have been like a son to me," he said softly. "But soon, I will go home." Tears filled Aaron's eyes. "Don't leave us, Father Elias. The people still need you." Elias smiled faintly. "They don't need me, my son. They need the kindness that God placed within them. Promise me, you'll keep it alive." "I promise," Aaron whispered. Elias placed his trembling hand on Aaron's shoulder. "Remember, the greatest power God gave us is not strength, but kindness. Strength builds walls. Kindness builds bridges." He closed his eyes, a peaceful smile on his face, and whispered one last prayer, "Into your hands, Lord." The bells of the chapel rang the next morning, their sound gentle as rain. The whole village came to say farewell. But instead of mourning, they sang because Elias had not just lived among them, he had changed them. After his passing, Aaron took over the chapel. He repaired it once more and carried on Elias's work. Under his care, Bethany Hollow became known as the Village of Light. Travelers who came through often spoke of the peace they felt there, a peace born from kindness, faith, and love. One day, a traveler asked Aaron, "What makes this place so different? The people here seem lighter." Aaron smiled and pointed to the great wooden cross that still stood in the center of the chapel. "Because once," he said, "a man showed us that love carved into wood lasts longer than stone. He taught us that kindness is not a word, but a way of living." The traveler nodded and said quietly, "May every village have an Elias." Aaron looked up at the sunlight streaming through the window, dust motes dancing like blessings in the air. "Every village does," he said. "They just need to remember the hands that healed." Outside, the bell rang again, echoing over green fields and the river now flowing once more. And if anyone listened closely, they could almost hear Elias's voice in the wind, calm, warm, and eternal, saying, "Keep your hands kind, and the world will feel the touch of God."